Hey everybody, welcome in. It is College World Series week in Omaha. It's a beautiful sentence right up there with Game 7 or anything else. We've got the final Omaha 8, which are arriving this week. Here to talk about it, Z Long, our digital guy with the Omaha World-Herald, and I'm Evan Bland, who will be out at the park quite a bit as well. This next, 10 days or so is teams descend. We've got a double elimination tournament as usual. It should be pretty fantastic. Z, how you feeling? College World Series week. The teams are here. We're going to see them with our own eyes.
Oh man, I'm jazzed. You know I am. I live downtown, so walking around this morning, even went for a run around the ballpark. Slowly, might I add. Just the energy's there. The tents are up. They're building the fan fest. The smell. It's just such a cool thing. I've got my small armada of College World Series hats. I'm going to rotate through this week. So this is why I came to Omaha to work here, was for this atmosphere and this environment. So I'm jazzed. I think it's going to be one hell of a World Series.
So here's the field real quick. Friday, we have Oklahoma and Texas A&M, along with Notre Dame and Texas. And then Saturday, it's Stanford, Arkansas, and Ole Miss, Auburn. With that breaks down to 4 SEC teams, 2 Big 12 future SEC schools, 1 ACC, and 1 Pac-12. So that's how the field breaks down. As you look at it, Z, just big picture, what stands out about this particular group of 8?
I think we were going to rename it the SEC West Invitational instead of the College World Series bracket. I think that the two key things I look at that just stood out is just the toughness, resolve, and poise of the teams that have gotten here. This is kind of two little nerdy stats I'm sure everyone has already hit on. Only 2 of these teams got here cleanly. That's it. A&M and Ole Miss, the only 2 that did not have a setback during the regional or super regional level. And then the other one, too, I love this stat. 6 of the 8 teams had to win a portion of their postseason on the road to get to Omaha. That statistically does not happen a whole lot. So that to me just shows you that this is a wide open field. These teams are tough. They have earned their way here the hard way. And I think it makes it a highly unpredictable bracket, and also one where if you're a fan coming to the games, you're going to be highly entertained, because these teams, I honestly, it's not a cliche when I say this, Evan, I think any of the 8 could win a national title. That's really how wide open this bracket is.
Yeah, I agree. And there's sort of a wide open feel to it, because there's this void where everybody thought Tennessee would be here. They were number 1, pretty much wire to wire. They were dominant. We talked about it on here about the field versus Tennessee. Who do you have? And Notre Dame takes them down. So they're not here. It does create sort of this uncertainty that you don't always have at this particular event. You have 4 non-national seeds. You've got 3 2 seeds as well as Ole Miss, which makes that now 9 out of 11 years since this event's been downtown that a 3 seed has been here. So that's interesting. And then kind of piggybacking off of one of your stats there, Z, the idea that 4 of these teams are here without playing a single game in the postseason in their home park. They've been on the road for the regional round, the super regional round, and now they're staying on the road in Omaha. These are teams, that nobody really expected necessarily to be here. Even Notre Dame and OU, who you could argue that they should have been able to host a regional, they didn't, and they're still here too. The other thing too that I'll be curious about, just big picture trend wise, is how does the power translate here this year? Because you've got, to this point, 128 postseason games in the regionals and the supers. That's 426 home runs hit. You're talking about 3.3 home runs per game. And when you look at the park record here at now what's called Charles Schwab Field, last year set that record. There were 28 home runs in 16 games. That's about 1.75. So you're talking like essentially double the rate this year in college baseball. Does that translate? You've got a lot of big hitting power teams like Stanford, like Texas, so on and so forth. Break it down a little bit for me more further, Z, in terms of maybe some games or teams that have your attention specifically.
Yeah, take a look here quickly at the bracket. These first round games are so massively key for how this tournament's going to work out. You look at Notre Dame, Texas, that one to me is huge, because those are both teams not known for an enormous amount of pitching depth. So that first game is massive of who wins that. And you're looking at a potential matchup there between John Michael Bertrand and Pete Hansen. That is an A-level pitching matchup for Texas and Notre Dame right there. But that's a key game. Whoever gets through that, it's going to be tough for those two teams to come back through with a loss just because of some of the pitching depth issues that they get into. But Texas has also proven after surviving East Carolina that they're dangerous. OU, A&M, Oklahoma, I mean, everyone's saying this, but it's the truth. Skip Johnson has done a hell of a job at OU. How that team has rebounded this year and finished the year, they are dangerous. They drop that game to Virginia Tech, come back the next day, and then a freshman, Cade Horton, three-hole pitcher basically for them, does a hell of a job and gets through. And then A&M, Louisville's tough. Louisville's a good baseball team, and those games, if you watched them in College Station, they were high stress. You could not relax. And it's a Jim Schlossnagle baseball team, right? They bring a lunch pail to the office, and they're a pain to deal with. So that game to me is going to be very fascinating, and that's a good pitching matchup right there. And just a couple things with A&M. Watch Micah Dallas, how he performs here. That's a kid who has experience in Omaha, pitched here for Texas Tech. So those are things you can kind of lean on. And then OU hasn't been here in 2010. So how's the lights? How bright are they? How much they get caught up in it? Those will be fascinating things. You look at the bottom half of it, Stanford, Arkansas. Man, Arkansas is they have figured it out at the perfect time. And that is a much more balanced team than what we even saw last year when they were the Tennessee of last year, the overall number 1 seed. Stanford, I don't know how to read this team. All I know is have fun getting the last 3 outs against them. That team can smash a baseball. Their pitching depth, no, it's not there. I mean, for Stanford, they have to win those first round games. But yeah, have fun with that leadoff hitter, Brock Jones. What a sadistic leadoff hitter to put in your lineup the way they hit. But yeah, they can smash the baseball. So Stanford's got as much a chance as anyone. And then Auburn, Ole Miss, that's a fascinating matchup. I don't think you can overstate how big it was what Ole Miss did this weekend. Not only do you go win the Hattiesburg Regional, you shut Southern Miss out 2 consecutive games. I don't care if you were the last team in the tournament. They are dangerous right now at a big level. And then Auburn, what's not to love? I was high on that team last week when we did this show. Sonny DeShera, just if you want to watch someone who loves the game, watch Sonny D hit. He is so tough to pitch against. He either walks, leads the nation in walks, or he hits bombs. That's just indicative of a very, very smart hitter they want to go to. And then, Ole Miss, they're going to be familiar with each other. Those are SEC teams that they know a lot about them, but I don't think you can put a lot of stock on how these teams matched up during the year when they faced up, because they're all so much different than where they are. So like I said, when you look at all these factors and all these things through, there's just not going to be a boring game in Omaha this year. This is going to be really exciting baseball.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good breakdown. I'll give you just a couple other kind of bits that sort of interest me. You mentioned Notre Dame to beat Tennessee the way that they did. Like, I'll be curious to see, do they go the way that NC State went last year after they knocked off Arkansas and get on a run? And of course, we didn't see how that story ended because COVID knocked them out. But do they continue with that momentum, or is there sort of an emotional letdown when you go to Tennessee and you beat a team like that? It kind of feels like you already won the national championship. And so can you reset and recharge and be here and ready to do this? And like you said, it's been 20 years for them since they've been here as well. And this is a new experience for them. And I think Oklahoma is interesting too to me, Z, because as I've been looking at sort of the strengths of each of these teams, the Sooners are an outlier. The blueprint to get here this year has been, fielded at a decent level, hit the crap out of the ball, and then you kind of figure the rest out. And OU, they're not a great pitching team. They're not a great fielding team, but they find ways to score. They're really the only team in Omaha that has any semblance of a running game. They don't mind playing small ball. So like that contrast in style to a lot of the other approaches in Omaha, I think will be pretty interesting. I guess last one for you then, Z. Tennessee's not here. Who's your favorite to win this thing? Call your shot on who dogpiles in Omaha.
I think this is tough. I told you before we started the show, I think it's one of the toughest brackets to predict that I can remember during my adulthood, just because you're right. Goliath isn't here, and a team that knocked them out wasn't a fluke. They're a damn good team that frankly got the shaft on the bracket release this year. Probably should have hosted. Damn sure shouldn't have been a 16 level, regional that would match up against the one. And they proved it. congrats to Link Jarrett. They did a hell of a job. So I think they are a threat to the whole thing. So when I look down to it, I'm probably going to go down in flames for what I'm about to say here. But as I look through it, I tried to look at it matchup by matchup, pitching matchups. And it's really tough because you could pick a team here that could go down in the first round and you're going to lose this. So here's what I'm going to do. Top bracket, give me Oklahoma. And it's the superlatives that you just mentioned. A kid you guys got to watch this week, Peyton Graham, shortstop for Oklahoma. He's going to be a first-round draft pick. Carries a lot of swag, carries a lot of his bat, and it's the way OU closed the year. Not only did they closed well in the Big 12, almost won the conference regular season title, did win the tournament title. They're hitting the hell out of the baseball, and they're getting production 1 through 9. Blacksburg, that was one of the best offenses in the country at Virginia Tech. They ran through them and really handled that environment. So I don't know, from a toughness standpoint, OU and Texas know each other. They've played. I'll take Oklahoma out of the top bracket. Bottom bracket, you're going to love this one. I know you're personally going to take a lot of stock in this. Here we go. I'm going to do it. Let's just go ahead and famous last words. Give me the Arkansas Razorbacks. That's who I'm going to take out of the bottom bracket. And I'll tell you why. I've got a ton of respect for what they're doing right now. And the key thing is this, and I know Evan's going to love this. You know what's make them so different than last year? Right now, they don't have Kevin Kopps.
Yeah.
And Kevin Kopps is a brilliant pitcher, but Dave Van Horn is trusting his bullpen. And you look at teams here that have good bullpens, Ole Miss among them, Auburn, damn good bullpen. Auburn has arms at the back half. Tiger, the younger kid, Brady Tiger, really good with what they do. I think because of that, and then what they've survived to get here, that was a Donnybrook at Oklahoma State that they survived. And then Chapel Hill, that's a really good baseball team, and they've just gotten clutch hitting. And what's the name of the game in Omaha? Sometimes, Evan, when you get these tight games, it's clutch hitting. And Arkansas might be doing that better than anyone in the country right now. So tough bracket. Hard to predict that. Give me Arkansas out of that tough bracket. So that would be OU Arkansas for a national title. And then just looking at where the pitching might be, and like I said, that clutch hitting, my prediction is Dave Van Horn gets a national title. Arkansas.
Wow, that'd be quite the storyline if he's finally able to pull that sucker out. Okay, I mean that's good. I'm going to give you my finalists here, and I'll break it down a little bit. I think it's going to be Texas Stanford in the final. And you mentioned earlier in the talk about the Texas Notre Dame matchup about how important it is to win that first game, and I think that's the key for Texas, because when you look at it, they really don't have much of a weakness other than the bullpen's a little bit suspect. But the way the format works here, and 2019 Michigan can attest to this, is you really only need like 3 or 4 guys to make that championship series if you take care of business early. And so with the way that they take care of the baseball in the field, I think they're still number 1 in the country in fielding. The way they hit the ball hard all the time. Ivan Melendez is a weapon. I just feel like that's a team that with this format, they can really kind of steamroll through this thing into the final. Stanford, it's tough because they've looked mortal at times. They've played 5 elimination games and they haven't even been to Omaha yet this year. So, but I think there's some, you build character, you build belief, and it feels like this team, they're like zombies. You can't kill them because they're already dead, it feels like. So they're going to hit the ball hard. And I think they're in a similar situation where we saw when you play 2 or 3 games in a row, the pitching gets a little wobbly. But if you only have to play once every couple of days, I think that plays in your favor. So obviously it comes down to, can you win those first couple of games? But I think you see those 2 teams. And I think Texas just has too much depth, too much firepower. I see the Longhorns taking this thing home.
I think that's a sound pick, Evan. I mean, it was so impressive. I mean, they were almost dead in that East Carolina regional, and to come back the way they did, silence that crowd, walk that off, then get to the next day. And then Tristan Stevens the kid has struggled a bit at times this year. He was brilliant to get them to Omaha. And then, like you said, their lineup hits hard, and it's not just Ivan Melendez. They are loaded. Trey Faltine has had a good bat during that. Kennedy, who bats right ahead of Melendez. You got to watch that dude. But yeah, the Hispanic Titanic, right? Maybe him and Sonny D probably leading the all nickname team coming in here. So the one thing I would say is we get Fan Day back this year, Evan, on Thursday. So you can go watch all the teams practice. More importantly, you can and watch them take batting practice. Kids, you want a baseball? There's going to be a lot of them hit out of that yard on Thursday during practice day. So get out there and get you a collectible.
Yeah, I miss the albino rhino. That would have been, I mean, we would have had an all-name lineup here if he would have made it as well.
Right.
But, and, you know, I think for what it's worth, we don't talk about this a ton, but it does matter what teams make it here in terms of how many fan bases, how the attendance goes at the World Series.
Oh, boy.
And, you know, I think with the exception of Tennessee, you pretty much got everybody that you wanted in terms of people that are going to travel. Arkansas travels. Oklahoma travels, the Texas schools will travel. Ole Miss, you can bet, will travel.
Absolutely.
Most of these are drivable sort of situations with the exception of Stanford. So I think it should be a pretty productive couple of weeks for Omaha vendors and local businesses too.
Yeah, you watch that second day with both Auburn or Ole Miss and Arkansas playing on the same day. Those are two big fan bases. You know, Arkansas travels, and in 2014, Ole Miss had a ton of people up here. So you're right. It'll have good SEC feel out in the old parking lot this year.
Well, can't wait. Starts Friday, 1 o'clock Central. Oklahoma and Texas A&M lead us off, and then we're off and away with the championship series beginning the following weekend. So for Z, I'm Evan. Hope you guys enjoyed the baseball. It's going to be a ton of fun. We'll see you out there. Stay cool, and thanks for watching.